Good morning, JP.
Hello, Estefania. How you doing?
I'm doing much better today. I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to catch up on what's going on in the crypto space and to share with you some fun stuff. I feel like I learn a little bit of something every week. How about you?
Yeah, I'm ready to go. I woke up really peppy today.
Good. Is there anything in
Yeah.
particular that inspired that?
No, it was just a new day.
Good. All right. Do we like this one better or do we like
We
this one?
probably have-
I think I like this one better.
I think I like that one better too. Yeah,
All right. Let's stick to that one.
cool.
So you were telling me earlier, there's been some interesting news in the markets regarding Luna.
Yeah, I
Tell
think we talked about this a little bit last week, right? Like the
Yeah.
idea that in crypto, if something fails, one could just spin up a new version of that thing and then put it out there and be like, okay, let's go. And so Luna actually did this. It's a really interesting I don't know, social experiment where it immediately crashed something like 70% in the first day. And I'm seeing a news headline from 2 days ago that Luna 2.0 crashed like 132% on the day of launch.
That means it's negative.
I don't think that's what it means, but it's a lot of money. That's a lot of
132%. So I guess like that would be
like
like,
it lost more than double. Like it lost.
okay.
Yeah,
I just didn't think it was possible to lose more than 100%, but
right.
okay.
Like it would be like if it. I'm probably going to butcher the math. Someone's going to hate me in the comments here, but it'd be like if it started at 100, it would have 100% loss, so it would be like $50, right? And no, 100%. Let's
Okay,
cut
I
this
think
one
I
back.
know. I think maybe it's like the percentage loss in comparison to the day before. Like, so
Yeah,
maybe
probably.
yesterday it lost $1, but today it loses $1.32, so it makes it 132% loss.
But it was the day of the launch, so there's nothing to compare it to, right?
Oh,
Except I guess the opening bell, whatever the opening price. All right, it was trading at 1953 at its peak and then crashed to just under $4 within hours. So
wow.
that represents 132% crash.
Interesting.
So from $20 to $4, you could say.
That's fast. I wonder if it's someone internally who like just bought in super low, saw it skyrocket, and then just dumped, or
I
if
don't
it was
think
like
there's a
someone exploiting it
final.
again because they saw the
There's a
problem.
creation, right? There's a creation of it, and they could just own it. And then if that, but the volume, looks like volume was low. Just at this chart that I'm looking at, looks like volume was low in the opening hours when it dropped. So just even a little bit of volume, and it just tanked. But like you could imagine a scenario, not saying it's this one, but there is a scenario like someone has a balance, like a hoard in their chest, and then they sell it all, and that dumps. Like that's what happened to Luna One. Essentially, is that it looks like a BlackRock and a Citadel got $100 million worth of Bitcoin, exchanged it in private markets for UST, and then immediately sold that huge hoard of UST that they had.
I read that somewhere too, but is that actually true? Because they've denied it. And I mean, we won't really know until they release their balance sheets, right?
But they would deny it. And even once they, as like it, Citadel was involved in the GME thing, the GameStop fiasco
Huh.
for selling too. So
Interesting. And
yeah,
it's surprising because I would think that regulators would be more concerned about things like that, considering that they're actually institutional investors.
doesn't seem like it.
Hmm.
They filed the GME. Like I don't think there's been any repercussions for lying about short selling or misstating his laws around like how much assets they were holding or how large their shorts were. I don't think there were any punishments.
That's really unfortunate because, like, it almost seems like people and I'm not saying this is true for everything because I do think that there is, like, a lot of good coming out of this. Like, blockchain in general is definitely a very positive thing for communities and just for the world. But I do wanna talk about today is, like, just how people should be super aware, and do research in regards to, like, what they're buying into or shilling. In case you don't know what shilling is, like, pumping something, promoting something, um, because for newcomers, for example, coming into the space, they hear about Luna and they're like, "Oh, wow, this is super cheap. Maybe I should buy it. It's like a Doge, and maybe it'll moon eventually and get to $1, and then I'm gonna 100x my investment." But the problem with that is like if they don't understand like the tech behind it or like the algorithms behind it, and they don't understand that there's a probability that it could be exploited, then there is a probability they could lose all their money.
Right. Yeah, you can lose it all. Absolutely.
Um, Another thought I had is like it almost seems like we're repeating some things that Web 2 currently has, right? So like you mentioned GameStop. So
Hmm.
institutional investors figured out to take part in what the Reddit kids were doing, which was manipulating the GameStop shares and probably banking out on it pretty greatly. Um, but also,
Yes,
it kind of makes
Citadel was shorting. So Citadel
okay.
had made they had more than 100% short positions. So they
Okay, so
created
they
these
lost
things called
money.
I'm not an expert in this area, but from what I understand, they created these synthetic shares, which is like they exist in some metaverse, so to speak. And synthetic shares, so they had higher than 100% in short positions, which would imply that one could never fully close all the short positions. I don't know. But basically, the goal is that they short the company so hard until the company is forced to go into bankruptcy. And
Mm,
this is when the Reddit kids, the apes, picked up on what was going on and really foiled Citadel's plans to bankrupt GameStop.
interesting. So it's showing me here, I just looked up what synthetic positioning is. So in
Mhm.
finance, a synthetic position is a way to create the payoff of a financial instrument using other financial instruments. A synthetic position can be created by buying or selling the underlying financial instruments and or derivatives. And it has a really interesting graph here. Hmm.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting the way that those who know can manipulate markets. And we haven't seen too much of that in Web3 because it just isn't big enough. But as Web3 gets larger and you have traditional investors moving into Web3, they're going to eat the socks. I mean, they're going to clear house, right? Because you have essentially amateur investors who are really just participating in a market that is just going up because of the massive growth. And they don't, some do, of course, but I say like the majority do not know really what they're doing. They know enough. Uh, and once these very sophisticated investors move into these areas, like you're at their whims, you're playing their game at that point.
Yeah, that's so true. Huh.
I think the important thing here is to like even if you believe in the technicals of a thing, even if you've done your research on a product, it can still go to zero. Luna crashed, UST crashed. There can still be a bad deal that is made that you as an individual has no power over whatsoever, and that thing can go belly up in a day. Right. And in crypto, those markets are even more volatile than they are in centralized economies. And so it's in a sense, it's a dangerous game to play.
Yeah. It makes me wonder, like, what are like and maybe you don't know the answer to this, and that's okay. But from what I understand, is like institutions can essentially go to companies and ask for a discounted price on a share because they're buying like X amount. Um, so like I don't fully understand that, and I don't fully understand why that's allowed because that seems like super unfair. And I'm wondering if something like crypto could essentially maybe stop that from happening. But then I think about it, it's like probably not because foundations or other big treasuries that hold large amounts probably break a deal and they're like, sure, we'll give you a few dollars of a discount and here's your trade. Yeah, and then therefore they can manipulate said markets. So I'm
Yeah, there
curious.
are private markets. There are like dark markets where there are private trading pools. So this is the deal with BlackRock and Citadel and UST. And it's as like can't when I say this, I'm not saying like it's 100% fact. This seems to be the most plausible suggestion, just kind of going to like Occam's razor, right? The simplest explanation is probably the truest explanation. Uh, but essentially it's like there are institutions with enormous amounts of money that you and I have a hard time fathoming, and they will move their assets in private markets to avoid creating huge volatility in public markets.
Interesting. I guess I didn't realize, but we have a guest today.
Oh, we have a friend coming on.
We
Let's
have
bring
a
our friend
friend today.
on.
Hello.
Hello, friend. How are you?
Hey, doing very well. Thanks for having me on the show today.
Thanks for
Here's
coming.
here's a guy who actually knows what he's talking about.
Well, glad to be among one of the few. There's many of them at Reach, so
But
appreciate that,
you
JP.
changed your name to Algod?
Oh, sorry. So, yeah, my name is Bobby Hamilton, and for well, those of you who haven't spoken with so far, I work on a piece of open source software called AlgodMonitor, and that is for monitoring Algorand nodes. So when you're accessing all of your favorite applications on the internet and you're interacting with the index node, hopefully the person running that node is using AlgodMonitor software.
Can we get you on a camera, or did you forget to brush your hair today?
you know, sorry, the system I'm on here doesn't have a camera. Um,
Oh, you're one of those high-powered Linux users.
yeah,
Yeah.
a blessing and a curse.
Well, tell us about AlgoMonitor and why is it important?
Okay. Um, Generally, when you're operating any Linux systems,
Mhm.
you want to pull the performance data and other system state information and push it to a ITSM solution. So that's something like ServiceNow. And these ticketing systems like ServiceNow generate an incident whenever there's a problem on a server. And that's what allows your support representatives to keep track of problems and management to really be aware of trends. So if you start seeing memory or CPU very high on some of your servers,
Could
or if
you
you
could you give like a 30 to 60-second definition of what a server is?
sure, a server is really just well, in a traditional sense, it is a physical computer, but now we use virtualization. So a computer is a virtual machine. So in a data center, you have all of these physical computers, and then they're spliced up or sliced up into smaller virtual machines. So when you go to like Amazon or Google Cloud or Microsoft, you can create an instance
Mhm.
in their cloud, and that's just giving you a virtual machine, which is a very small slice of these big, powerful servers.
So
And
what
in
you're doing is like you're in a highly technical service industry, but like someone like say like me or Steph, like just the average user, we wouldn't ever think about this really, right? Except when we get a 404. Like we try to go to a site and it doesn't work. This is the only time we're thinking about what you're doing, right?
right, let's say that you sent a transaction and the front end application is waiting for that transaction to be committed.
Mhm.
And you're just sitting there waiting, and it's spinning. It's taking longer than it should, and then it never happens.
Right.
So you know Algorand settles in 4.5 seconds. So you start to wonder what's going on here. Did
Right.
my transaction go through, or and again, since it's Algorand, you know your transaction went through. So
Right.
that just leaves
So
it to
in Web 2, I know it's important because like I want to buy my stuff or I want to pay my bill and it's a, an annoying inconvenience. Like at worst, I'm going to have to get on the phone and pay through like a customer service rep or an automated server, right? Why is this important on the blockchain?
well, certainly anyone who's transitioning to a new service, if you're making an upgrade to one of your customer facing portals, you want that to go seamlessly. You want your launch to go well. You want the system performance to be in line with user expectations. You don't want that endless spinning and loading, waiting for something to happen. So, as more and more traditional applications and solutions move to blockchain, we need to make sure that monitoring is very well engineered in a way that people don't get in situations where there's outages and they're not aware of them,
Mhm.
or there's application performance issues and they're not aware of them.
Is it like is it an attack vector? If a node goes down, does that become an attack vector where I can write my own information to a transaction block, or transaction blocks aren't going through and then it becomes decoupled from the consensus network? What's the worst case scenario there?
Um, well, the Algorand Foundation is very selective on who's operating the relay nodes at the core of the infrastructure, at the core of the network.
Mhm.
So they're hosted in very large, you could say oversized servers and connections. The main risk if you were to take a node offline is there would be some impact to service.
Mhm.
Normally, you have participation nodes and other relay nodes that are communicating with that relay. So if one of them goes offline, there's a little bit of extra chatter, a little bit of communication, kind of like if someone doesn't show up to a meeting and you're
Yep.
wondering, hey, where's that person? And you're kind of talking about them. So all of the nodes are going to be talking to each other, saying, where's that node? Why isn't it online?
Like that.
Huh.
But there won't be
So
any real significant at this point. There's no significant impact. I think some of the guys at the foundation could give a real uh, clear understanding of what would happen in a high load scenario.
mhm.
So if we were really pushing that max TPS, and then if some of the relay nodes were to go offline, what would happen? Or if there was like a network split. So
TPS is transaction per second.
yeah, transactions per second.
And so right now, how many can Algorand handle?
Algorand does about 1,000 transactions per second.
Okay. So if the network was congested, then more nodes would be necessary in order to keep that uh, speed up, or how would that be fixed?
I think that the only way they can increase that transactions per second is to increase the size of a block. Actually, there's two ways. One is increasing the size of a block of transactions, and then two is decreasing the amount of time that the network takes to make a block of transactions. So it's 4.4 seconds right now, and that's
Yeah.
decreasing to 2.5
Yeah, I read
seconds.
that.
Yeah.
How many transactions per second do we get on like a Mastercard or Visa currently?
Mm,
Oh, that's a good question. Um, well, the new upgrade for Algorand is targeting 64,000 transactions per second,
Wow.
and I think that Visa and Mastercard is like 10% of that.
Oh, really?
I know that the federal government,
Mhm.
the U.S. federal government, they put some outlines on. They did some testing, I guess, and there's some code out there from a CBDC, central bank digital currency pilot.
Okay. Like a USDC,
Yeah,
but from the central bank.
yep. And they said they want an application that can do 100,000 transactions per second.
Okay. Per second. So 64,000 per second, and then transactions are certified every 2.5 seconds. Algorand's really getting close to there.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
It'll be interesting to see what's next to come.
how big of a feat is it to go from 64,000 to 100,000 transactions per second?
Oh, I think
Is
that
that a
I think there was some interesting discussion about from a software engineering perspective. There was several individuals there. I can't remember. I believe Paul Regal was there, and it was on a recent Twitter space
who's Paul Regal?
with the foundation. Uh, Paul works for the foundation. I'm not sure
Okay.
what his title is, but he's the foundation really does a lot of great community outreach, and they had this one session with also with Fred Estante,
Mhm.
mm.
and they were talking all about the technical aspects of this TPS upgrade. So really interesting stuff. Um, I'll see if I can pull up that recording and I'll share it with you. There's
Oh,
more
cool.
information in there than I can remember.
I also found Visa can process around. So this is an article on towardsdatascience.com by Kenny L. It's the Future of Blockchain series, and he says that Visa does 1,700 transactions per second based on the calculation derived from the official claim of over 150 million transactions per day.
Uh-huh. It's like Algorand's blowing that out of the water then.
Yeah, and also, I'm seeing that there's a calculation here that's showing that, so the number of transactions per block equals block size in bytes over average transaction size in bytes. So, you can plug in the numbers there, and then you can figure out the number of transactions per block. So makes sense, makes sense. Hmm.
Okay. Yeah, I guess
So,
there's
Bob,
different. Oh, I was
sorry, go
just
ahead.
saying. I guess there's different transaction size based on if you're interacting with a smart contract or if you're writing more data.
Mm,
So,
right, because
we'd
that would
have to
affect
look at
the
that.
byte size, right? Is that why?
Yeah, I guess that's why they're saying take the block size divided by the transaction size, average transaction size. Well, that's interesting. That I guess depending on your transaction size, then the amount of transactions that fit in a block is a little variable.
Hmm. Yeah.
Let's see.
So, how did you come on this idea to build AlgoMonitor? Like, what's your genesis story, your origination?
I just wanted to make sure that I, there's a lot of people who are running nodes and they're learning how to interact with the blockchain.
Mhm.
They're learning how to build reach applications and they're thinking about running their own node and kind of a test environment. So there's also projects and companies that have real backing and they're setting up infrastructure. So
Mhm.
at every level in this ecosystem, someone is either doing some development or production work with Algorand nodes.
Hmm.
And I thought that if we can bring people together to build a database
Mhm.
of the common error codes and failure conditions, then when you encounter a problem, you're not starting at square one. You're not looking at Google saying algo D not running, an error, and you're searching, you're getting a bunch of funny results. We should have a database application where you can pull up the error codes and get all of the reference information you need very easily.
Okay.
So that's one aspect. Um, the second is that from a network health perspective, it would be wonderful to have a portal showing the health of the relay nodes, the community operated indexers or uh, private companies that are operating indexers. Just keep there's so much news these days about blockchains going down, and there's a
Mm.
lot of
Yeah.
confusion, right? Sometimes you can just have an index node that's down, and it might be JP's index node that went down that's in his home
Right.
lab, but it affected a demo reach application that I'm using. And now if I went on Twitter and I say, oh, it looks like Algorand is down. And actually, it's just JP's index node in our beta environment. But you want to have verifiable proof that your
Yeah.
network is online, because when you're in an enterprise environment, they expect systems. They call it the 11 nines of
Right.
reliability.
Right.
So
9 decimal
99.
places or
Yeah,
11 decimal places to the nines.
yeah, meaning your system has to be up essentially all the
11
time.
nines in the decimal place. Right. Yes.
Can
um,
can you
yeah.
guys expand on that a little bit more? Because like this is a whole new language to me, and I want to try and
Okay.
understand. So, because I've heard of discrepancies like in code, right, where there's like a
Mhm.
decimal point's just off by one number or something, and then it creates exploits in contracts. Is that similar to this, or is this completely different because we're talking about nodes specifically?
Now we're talking about something else. This is
Oh,
uptime.
yeah, this is more just related to uptime. The thing with smart contracts and large numbers, I don't quite know enough about that one.
This would be like when you see on a server, if you ever shop for servers or a VPN, they'll say something like, our servers are up 99.999999% of the time. Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So meaning that like if I was using a VPN, then my VPN in Switzerland, that's like redirecting my IP in Switzerland, would only work 99.999% of the time.
I mean, they're saying that it will work 99.99999% of the time, which is to say, like, almost always. You know?
Mhm.
Yeah, there's not going to be any downtime.
Okay. And what does that look like? Because with something like Bitcoin, right, there's an ability for the miners to sort of have the ability to fork or disagree if we get to 51%. Is it similar with Algorand or does it work differently?
Um, with Algorand, you would need to have the majority of consensus.
Okay.
You would need to have the majority of consensus for multiple rounds. If you wanted to attack the network, if you really wanted to write transactions that were fraudulent, you would need to take over a large percentage of the network. I'm guessing 60+%.
Mm.
Um, there's
on
probably
on
some
Algorand.
information.
And what is it about Algorand that makes it 60+% and not 51%?
Well, it might actually be two-thirds. I could pull up the Algorand white paper. I think there is some references in there, but it's different fundamentally in how it works. That with Bitcoin, it's whoever has the most compute power.
Mhm.
You don't
Okay.
need to hold. You don't need to hold any of you don't need to hold any Bitcoin to be a Bitcoin miner.
Yeah.
But for Algorand, you have to hold Algorand to.
Is
Mhm.
is this like one of those things that Algorand has that's able to sort of combat quantum computing if like quantum computers came in and tried to disrupt the network? Is that why something like this exists?
I think for quantum computing, it's more about the encryption key.
Mm,
It's more about the type of encryption used for your private key.
okay.
Yeah. Yeah, when you're talking about attacking, so there's two different concepts there. I guess there's two different points of attack. One of them would be to attack the network. So you're attacking the nodes that are running the network, and those nodes are participating in consensus. So they're agreeing on what the next block of transactions should be. And then the other concept that you're talking about with quantum, that is attacking the authentication side of things. So each user has their own authentication, kind of their own password, and that's your private key. So if you're attacking the network and you're trying to make the network accept a fraudulent transaction, that's one attack vector. And then this other one would be attacking an individual account with a quantum computer and trying to crack the password for that account.
Mm.
So how do we get as smart as you, Bobby? Like, you know,
JP, you know so much. You know,
what does a person do to get into Web3? What's your advice?
the most exciting thing right now in 2022 is access to information, right?
Mm.
We have great content coming from the Reach portal, great content coming from the Algorand portal. And in the next, I would imagine within the next 6 months, we'll start to see the first of the content from universities that's coming through the Algorand Centers of Excellence.
Mhm.
Mm.
That Algorand Centers of Excellence program, that's very big news. And they have partnerships with over 10 different universities all over the world. I, I can recall 3 or 4 in the US. I think it was Berkeley, Carnegie Mellon, uh, some others. And then they have different countries all over the world. So, very exciting. They're going to be producing open courseware. So, that will be available. And I believe that's going to be including any materials. So, not just recordings of the lectures, but also the materials and tests, things that you would be doing if you were actually in the class. So that's phenomenal. And
Mm.
and JP, aren't you guys producing some awesome new content and videos too?
Yeah, we have a boot camp. We just wrapped up our first cohort. We're launching our next cohort June 28th, 22 here. It'll be
June
right
20.
after ETH NYC and NFT NYC. And then, we're working with, well, I should say that the University of Florida, Gainesville, is adopting our curriculum along with
Oh,
producing curriculum for Algorand and just like general blockchain technologies. And they're teaching as part of their um, digital program that they have there. So I reached, and then we're working with boot camps that want to take on our curriculum as well. So, yeah, and I think this is going to be universities need this kind of education and this kind of material in their coursework and as part of their programs if they want to stay relevant. And maybe it doesn't seem very like necessary at this point in time, but I think if you give it 5 to 10 years and those universities that have acted now are going to be far and above ahead of universities that are going to wait and then be forced to play catch up in a decade's time.
Yeah, you guys are really doing your part as far as making it accessible for people to learn how to develop using blockchain. And you're 100% right. I think anyone who starts building now and they they're learning skills, they're retaining talent within their organization.
Mhm.
That's the way to go. You don't want to be playing catch up later and trying to hire a bunch of external people. It's always better to build those skills with a team.
Right. Yeah, and those people are going to be very expensive in the future.
So let's see. You said June
June
28th.
28th. June
So that's a
28th.
Tuesday.
Yeah, yeah. So we do the way we run our cohorts is we have a live lecture that's recorded over Zoom, and then we disperse that to our participants, so our cohort participants who are climbing the ascent with us.
Hmm.
And then students are able to consume that on their own time. You know, if they're able to join us live, that's awesome. They can participate, ask questions. And then we also have an office hours at a different time and a different day in the week when people can join and ask questions and get follow-up questions on like the lecture or the work that they're working on. And then there's like weekly assignments and quizzes that are, you know, the purpose of that is just to do a knowledge reference check to make sure that the student knows that they understand, like they're ready for the next unit.
Okay.
Bobby, did you
Yeah.
participate in the last cohort?
Yeah. I actually I came down to Austin, Texas, so that's where the whole story began. I got to attend those in-person demonstrations. We had Chris, and you were leading lots of them too. What else we had? We had Jay doing that live code RSVP demo,
Yeah.
and Russ Festino. So yeah, it's really beneficial to get. Well, Russ had the Mora tutorial on the Algorand developer portal, and
Yeah.
I went through that with JP in this 6-week program. Um, so we just finished that up last week.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, just finished that up, and then we had a internal presentation for our graduates. So that was a lot of fun. Seeing the projects that they're doing and then seeing the work. Like one of our students received a grant from Algorand to start his own company. We've got Erin Murphy, who we interviewed a couple weeks ago, and that was just released. She's co-founded the Algorand Gaming Guild. You know, we had another student that got a job, and his job now is they've hired him. It's a Web2 company that wants to move into Web3, and they
Oh,
hired him specifically for the purpose of helping their company translate from Web2 to Web3.
that's amazing.
Isn't that awesome?
Yeah. Do we know what
Uh,
kind of company this is?
Yeah, he shared some information. Is I don't know the like exact sub economy, but yeah. Who else we've got? And then a number of students who just put in a lot of work and effort and have built amazing portfolios. We hired one, Nick Stanford was a recent hire, who we've also interviewed here, and then we've got a number of other graduates that I want to bring on and talk to. They're really amazing, and I'm hopeful for their futures and careers in Web3.
Yeah, that's really exciting.
Yeah.
It's great to see.
Yeah, it is.
I
So
remember, Bobby, you mentioned that you're working on a book. How's that coming along?
Oh, yeah, I've been helping my grandmother with her book. We've been working for a long time, and we published it. We've been doing different little promotion and marketing materials, and we have some printed ones. They're just like a card It's maybe 6 inches by 4 inches, and it has the cover of the book. And then on the back, it tells you where to go, and it gives you a little introduction. So
Yeah. I think Steph is ready to turn your grandmother's book into an NFT.
I was
Yeah.
literally going to ask to mint it.
So interesting thing. If you look back when Algorand announced this collaboration with SIAE, the Italian organization for copyrights,
Mhm.
there was hundreds of thousands, I think even millions of transactions to register copyrights. So what we did was when we applied for the copyright for my grandmother's book, we got a registration number. We also applied for the Library of Congress registration. You get a registration number,
Mhm.
and I think it makes sense to take those registration numbers and commit them to blockchain, right?
Yeah.
And if you wanted to do any type of series for collectibles, whether digital artwork or physical, um, it would be an interesting way to track or to give people, I don't know, I think a way to participate. I think what Web3 is all about, participation and engagement. So there's definitely some potential there. What we've been doing to promote her book is making some different digital artwork, but we're licensing commercial images. So it's really neat though. It's really fun. We've been taking different quotes from the book and finding some different scenes, and you got to get ready. You got to have a storyboard ready for when we make it into a movie.
I love that.
Great.
Yeah.
That's great. Very deserving.
I know that on Ethereum, there is a way for you to like mint it as an actual book, and then your NFT would allow you to like flip through the book
Hmm.
when you're like using those marketplaces. I'm wondering if Algorand has that capability where you'd be able to actually mint a book. It's sort of like a PDF version or something, and like go through the pages.
I don't think anyone's made an application like that so far.
Hmm.
I think you would just have, similar to an NFT, the IPFS link
Yeah.
directing to a PDF or another format, and then you'd have a front end that can read that, and maybe you would have some metadata, right? Like a image, a static image to display for the cover, and then a link
Mhm.
to the PDF. But
Huh.
I wonder about how do you do the authentication side of it? So anyone who you need to make it encrypted, I guess, and you would need to have it so otherwise anyone could just read the book without purchasing it.
Right.
Mhm.
And I guess that's a secret. There's this concept they said secrets on the blockchain,
Hmm.
Hmm.
and I've heard that mentioned a few times. I didn't find there were a few research papers that mentioned this concept, secrets on the blockchain, but I've heard it referenced by a few people lately, and I guess that's when you start talking about things like health records or some information that you want to keep protected. And right now we're relying on these encryption algorithms. So the same encryption that we use for HTTPS to connect to our bank. Um, if someone was to compromise that, then any data that was publicly available that was encrypted could be decrypted. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how that works. Secrets on the blockchain. How can you put something out there and make it future proof?
Yeah. That's interesting. So in the last few minutes here, Bobby, like you're a busy guy. You've got a day job. You've got AlgodMonitor that you're building. Got grandparents that you take care of and visit on a regular basis. How do you structure your day so that you have time to learn and to build and to take care of your responsibilities?
Good question. Good question. I think the weekends, most people use their weekends to rest and recharge. I guess I like to use those weekends to learn Reach, to learn PyTeal, to learn a little bit of front end development. I've been doing some. I've developed websites like Web 2, you could say Web 1.
Yeah.
But I just like to learn on the weekends and take time before and after work. Um, if you're if you really enjoy working in technology, it becomes fun to you. So you can take a break from one job and do another one.
Yeah. So for you, it's binging the weekends. Do you do much over the weekdays as well, or do you pretty much save it for like a Friday night, Saturday, Sunday?
Oh, I just kind of keep working all the time. You know, I think that's the nature. It's all about community. If you have friends that you enjoy hanging out with, and you just so happen to be talking about development, then I don't think it's really work. I had a friend who one of my father's friends. He was a barber, and he said my job is great. He says my friends come to visit me all day, and they give me money when they see me. So that's the only thing missing. I'm not. No, it's really great. I've made some wonderful friends, and I'm very thankful.
You'll have to start sharing your address, your Algo address.
Okay. Well, there is the. I'll keep posting good content and more updates on algod.network.
Great.
And I'm going to have a summary coming soon about that Twitter space with Fred Estante, where they went over the network upgrades, TPS changes, block size, and all of the good technical information.
Great. Well, let us know when you share that, and our content people have to share that out. Where can we find you on Twitter?
So the Twitter account is just at AlgodMonitor.
Mhm.
And I would recommend to everyone to check out on Sunday the AlgoFam Twitter Spaces. There's just an amazing group of people who come through, including the foundation, reach different applications. I think recently last weekend there was Slice Space. Really interesting stuff. I like learning about things people are building. So Sundays, that's another hallmark for me. I look forward to the Twitter space at noon CST
Yeah.
on Sunday.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to join us, Bobby. It was a pleasure to have you, per usual.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Bob.
Appreciate it. You guys are wonderful.
You're great too. Good to talk to you.
All right. Have a
Don't
great rest of the day.
I'm going to put you behind the scenes, but I'm going to take you off the main screen.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Bobby. That was awesome. Great questions,
Yes,
JP. I feel like a lot of that kind of went over my head, but I'm always grateful to learn something new. So that was fun.
I'm just treading water here.
Yeah, I think I really enjoy conversations like that don't really make sense to me because it allows for like my mind to start thinking about whether it be like new terminology or just like new paradigms of tech, which is really exciting.
Yeah. Yeah. And Bobby's like, he's really patient and very thorough in his explanations. So it's really great to talk to him. Sometimes I just give him a call and say what's up. And then we talk for an hour.
That makes so much sense. I feel like you guys have that similar wavelength of calm, able to like make something boring sound kind of fun and exciting or curious, almost mysterious.
It must be something about the water. Midwest boys. Well, this has been fun. It's been good to see you, Steph.
You too, JP. Always a pleasure.
Where are
And
we
to
going to
everyone,
find you?
yes, NFT Mommy on Twitter. And for everyone watching, you can find JP on Twitter as The Real JP Miller. And you can join us every Thursday here at 9 a.m. and watch our podcast on YouTube or listen to it on Spotify. It's kind of silly to say watch our podcast, but you can watch it.
You don't want to
So,
miss these faces.
pardon?
You don't want to miss these faces.
Exactly. So thank you for joining us. If you have any questions, comments, or even want to correct anything we said that we're still learning about, please do. Maybe we'll bring you on as a guest next time, and we'd be happy to take in your knowledge.
That'd be great. Awesome.
Bye, everyone.